The waiting room of the Riverside Fertility Clinic hummed with quiet anticipation. Nadia sat between her sister Lena and her mother Fatima, her hand resting protectively on her rounded belly. 6 months pregnant, she felt the baby flutter, a gentle reminder of why this appointment mattered so much. "He'll be here," Nadia whispered, more to herself than to her companions. She checked her phone again. No messages. No missed calls. Lena squeezed her hand. Maybe he's stuck in traffic? But they all knew Marcus's office was only 15 minutes away. He'd promised. After missing the last 2 appointments, he'd sworn he wouldn't miss this one. This wasn't just a routine checkup. Dr. Morrison needed both of them present to discuss some test results and finalize paperwork for the high-risk pregnancy protocol. Nadia Hassan? A nurse appeared in the doorway, clipboard in hand. Nadia stood, smoothing down her dress. Her mother and sister rose with her, a silent wall of support. The nurse's eyes flickered with recognition. She'd seen Nadia at previous appointments, always alone despite the wedding ring that caught the fluorescent lights. Dr. Morrison's office was warm, decorated with photos of babies she'd helped bring into the world. The doctor smiled, but concern shadowed her eyes as she noted Marcus's absence. "I'm sorry," Nadia said immediately. "My husband is running late. Can we wait a few minutes?" "Of course." Dr. Morrison settled behind her desk. "But Nadia, I do need to discuss something important, and legally, I need both parents present for what I'm about to propose." Nadia's heart quickened. She tried Marcus's phone again. It rang once, then went to voicemail. She tried again. Same result. He was declining her calls. Fatima's hand found her daughter's shoulder. "Tell us what you can, doctor." 20 minutes passed. Dr. Morrison explained what she could without Marcus present. The baby was healthy, but the pregnancy required additional monitoring. There were forms, legal documents about emergency procedures that needed both signatures. They'd have to reschedule. In the parking lot, Nadia stood beside her sister's car, staring at her phone. The afternoon sun beat down and she felt suddenly exhausted. Lena wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "Where is he?" Nadia's voice cracked. Not with anger yet, but with something worse, the terrible recognition that she already knew the answer. He wasn't coming. He hadn't planned to come. "Let's go home," Fatima said gently. "We'll figure this out." But as they drove toward the house Nadia shared with Marcus, she felt the first real stirrings of fear. What exactly would they find when they arrived? The house felt wrong the moment Nadia unlocked the door. It wasn't anything obvious, no ransacked rooms or overturned furniture. It was subtler than that. The air felt hollow, abandoned, like a space already mourning what it had lost. "I'll make tea," Fatima said, heading toward the kitchen while Lena helped Nadia to the couch. Nadia sat heavily, her hand pressed against her belly where the baby kicked insistently. "He's probably just working late," she said, but the words felt like ash in her mouth. Lena disappeared down the hallway toward the bedroom. Nadia heard drawers opening, closet doors sliding. Then silence. Then footsteps, quick and purposeful. "Nadia." Lena's voice was tight. "Some of his clothes are gone. His suitcase. His toiletries." The words hung in the air like a sentence. Nadia stood, ignoring her mother's protests, and walked to their bedroom. The closet gaped open. Empty hangers clustered on one side. His favorite leather jacket, gone. The watch box he kept on the dresser, gone. But he'd left behind photographs, their wedding album, everything that carried memory. "He was planning this," Nadia whispered. "While I was getting ready this morning, telling him I'd see him at the appointment." Her voice broke. Lena guided her back to the living room, where Fatima pressed a cup of chamomile tea into her shaking hands. That's when Lena spotted it, Marcus's iPad, half hidden under a magazine on the coffee table. He never went anywhere without it. "Nadia, did he leave this on purpose?" The iPad wasn't locked. Lena opened it and the messages appeared immediately. Nadia's teacup clattered against the saucer as she read over her sister's shoulder. "I can't do this anymore. I need out before the baby comes. Are you sure it's even yours? You said there were problems." "I've moved the savings to the other account. She won't find it." The messages went back weeks. Conversations with his brother, with friends, each one a small betrayal that together formed a devastating picture. He'd been planning his escape while she'd been planning a nursery. Nadia's breath came in short gasps. Lena grabbed her phone. "I'm calling Kareem. Right now." Their brother arrived within the hour, still in his suit from the law office, his expression darkening as he read through the messages. Kareem had always been protective, but now his lawyer's mind clicked into action. He's been transferring money? Kareem's fingers flew across his own laptop. Nadia, I need access to your bank accounts. All of them. The next hours blurred together. Statements printed. Spreadsheets created. The evidence mounted. Marcus had been systematically moving their shared savings for 3 months. Not all of it, nothing that would trigger immediate alarm, but enough that Nadia's security was compromised. He planned this, Kareem said grimly. This wasn't a spontaneous decision. He's been preparing to abandon you and his child. Nadia sat in the center of her family's protective circle, feeling simultaneously held together and falling apart. She remembered Marcus's hands on her face the night they'd learned she was pregnant. The way he'd kissed her, tender and deep, whispering promises against her lips. The way they'd made love that night, slow and reverent, his palm pressed against her still flat stomach. Where had that man gone? When had he been replaced by this stranger who could abandon his wife and unborn child? What do I do? She asked finally. Kareem's eyes were steel. We protect you. And when he comes back, because he will come back, we make sure he understands exactly what he's done. 3 days passed. 3 days of Nadia sleeping in the guest room, unable to face their bed alone. 3 days of her family rotating shifts, someone always present. 3 days of silence from Marcus except for a single text. I need time to think. Kareem had been busy. He'd frozen the accounts, filed preliminary paperwork, and built a case that would ensure Nadia and the baby were protected regardless of what Marcus decided. Lena had transformed into a fierce guardian, screening all calls and messages. Fatima cooked, cleaned, and held her daughter when the tears came. On the 4th day, Marcus's car pulled into the driveway at dusk. Nadia was sitting in the living room, her family positioned strategically around her. Kareem stood near the window, arms crossed. Lena sat beside her sister, hand clasped in hers. Fatima occupied the chair closest to the door, a silent sentinel. The key turned in the lock. Marcus stepped inside, eyes adjusting to the dim light. He froze when he saw them all, his expression shifting from surprise to something that might have been guilt. Nadia, he stopped really seeing them now. The united front. Kareem's briefcase on the coffee table. The documents spread across every surface. Sit down, Marcus. Kareem's voice was cold, professional. Not the friendly brother-in-law who'd helped Marcus move furniture last summer. We need to talk. Marcus remained standing. This is my house. I don't need to. Actually, Kareem interrupted smoothly, it's Nadia's house. Her name is on the deed. You're currently a guest who abandoned his pregnant wife without explanation. So, sit down. The words hit their mark. Marcus's shoulders sagged. He moved to the armchair opposite Nadia, and for the first time in days they looked directly at each other. He'd lost weight. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. He looked haunted, but Nadia felt her sympathy curdle into something harder. She'd spent 3 nights crying into her pillow while their baby moved inside her. She'd earned her anger. Why? The single word escaped her lips. Marcus ran his hands through his hair. I was scared. I'm scared. The fertility treatments, the pregnancy complications, the responsibility of a child. He gestured helplessly. What if I'm not ready? What if I fail? So you already chose to fail? Lena's voice was sharp. You chose to abandon her? I didn't abandon, I just needed space to think. You missed a crucial medical appointment. Kareem's tone could have cut glass. You moved money out of shared accounts. You packed your belongings. Those aren't the actions of someone who needs space. Those are the actions of someone planning to disappear. Marcus flinched. I was going to come back. I was going to explain. When? Nadia's voice rose, months of suppressed emotion breaking through. After the baby was born? After I'd gone through labor alone? She stood, her hand pressed against her belly. Do you remember the night we conceived? Do you remember what you said to me? His eyes found hers and she saw the memory reflected there. They'd been trying for so long, the fertility treatments taking their toll. That night, after another successful procedure, they'd gone home and held each other. He'd traced patterns on her skin, his touch igniting something desperate and tender between them. They'd made love with the kind of intensity that comes from hope and fear intertwined. Whatever happens, he'd whispered against her neck, we're in this together. Always. You promised, Nadia said now, her voice breaking. You promised we were in this together. Marcus's face crumbled. I know. God, Nadia, I know. I'm so sorry. I panicked. You broke her. Fatima spoke for the first time, her quiet words carrying the weight of maternal fury. You broke my daughter when she needed you most. Kareem opened his briefcase, pulling out papers. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign these documents ensuring financial support for Nadia and the baby. You're going to attend counseling, both individual and couples if Nadia agrees. You're going to prove, through actions not words, that you deserve to be part of this child's life. Marcus stared at the papers, then at Nadia. And if I do all that? If I prove myself? Nadia met his gaze, and in that moment she felt something shift inside her. She'd spent 3 days being held together by her family's strength. Now she felt her own strength crystallizing, forged in the fire of betrayal and survival. Then we'll see, she said. But Marcus, I'll never be that vulnerable again. Whether you stay or go, I know now that I can survive without you. The weeks that followed were a careful dance between hope and caution. Marcus signed every document Kareem placed before him. He moved into a temporary apartment, giving Nadia space while proving his commitment from a distance. He started therapy, individual sessions twice a week with Dr. Chin, a specialist in anxiety and life transitions. Every morning a text arrived, "Good morning. Thinking of you and our baby." Every evening flowers appeared on the doorstep. Not grand gestures, simple bouquets of daisies, Nadia's favorite, with handwritten notes attached. "I'm learning to face my fears instead of running from them. You deserve better than what I gave you. I'm working to become that." But Nadia had built walls around her heart, necessary fortifications after such devastating betrayal. She attended her own therapy sessions, processed her pain with a counselor who helped her understand that Marcus's abandonment wasn't her fault. Lena stayed most nights, and the house filled with the sounds of sisterly laughter, late-night conversations, and plans for the nursery that no longer depended on Marcus's presence. 2 weeks after the confrontation, Marcus asked to meet. Not at the house, neutral ground. A quiet cafe where they'd had their first date 3 years ago. Nadia remembered that afternoon with painful clarity. Marcus had been charming, attentive, making her laugh until her sides ached. He'd walked her home in the rain, and when they reached her door, he'd cupped her face so gently, asking permission with his eyes before kissing her. That kiss had tasted like possibility, like every romantic dream she'd ever harbored. Now, sitting across from him in that same cafe, she saw both the man she'd fallen in love with and the man who'd shattered her trust. "I want to show you something," Marcus said, sliding a folder across the table. Inside were certificates from parenting classes, receipts from a financial advisor helping him create a college fund, a letter from his therapist, not breaking confidentiality, but confirming his attendance and engagement, documentation of everything he'd been doing these past weeks. "I know I can't undo what I did," Marcus said, his voice rough. "I know I can't take back missing that appointment or the pain I caused, but I'm trying to understand why I ran. Why I sabotaged the best thing in my life." Nadia listened as he explained the sessions with Dr. Chin, the unpacking of his own childhood trauma, a father who'd abandoned his family, leaving Marcus terrified of repeating that pattern. The fear had become so overwhelming that he'd fulfilled his own prophecy, becoming the very thing he feared. "I don't expect forgiveness," Marcus continued. "Not yet, maybe not ever. But I want to be the father our daughter deserves. And if you'll let me, I want to try to be the husband you deserved from the beginning." Nadia's hand rested on her belly, feeling the baby's movements, stronger now, more insistent. She thought about the life growing inside her, the little girl who would need her mother to model strength and boundaries, but also grace and second chances when they were earned. "I can't promise anything," she said finally. "Trust isn't rebuilt with flowers and documents, Marcus. It's rebuilt with time and consistent action." "I know. And I've changed. I'm not the woman who needed you to feel complete. I'm not the woman who would sacrifice her own well-being to keep the peace." She met his eyes steadily. "I'm stronger now. And I like who I'm becoming." Something flickered in Marcus's expression. Not disappointment, but what looked like genuine admiration. "You should be strong. You always were. I just made you feel like you needed me more than you did." They talked for hours. Not about reconciliation or promises, but about practical matters. Co-parenting arrangements if they stayed separated. What his role would be during the birth. How they'd handle holidays and decisions about their daughter's upbringing. As the sun set outside the cafe windows, casting everything in golden light, Marcus reached across the table. Not to grab her hand but to offer his palm up, a question, not a demand. Nadia looked at his hand, remembering the first time he'd held hers, the electricity that had sparked between them. She remembered their wedding day, his hands shaking as he slid the ring onto her finger. She remembered the night they'd made love after learning she was pregnant, his hands reverent on her changing body. Slowly she placed her hand in his. Not a reconciliation. Not forgiveness. But an acknowledgement that the road forward might have room for both of them, if he continued to walk it honestly. "One day at a time," she said. "One day at a time," he agreed. Labor began on a Tuesday morning, 2 weeks before Nadia's due date. The contractions started as she was helping Lena paint the nursery, a soft sage green they'd chosen together, decorated with hand-painted clouds and stars. "It's time," Nadia gasped, gripping the edge of the dresser. The next hours blurred into a sequence of phone calls and rushed preparation. Fatima drove while Lena sat in the back timing contractions. And Marcus met them at the hospital entrance, having driven from his apartment the moment he received the text. He'd proven himself over the past 2 months. Not through grand gestures but through showing up. Every prenatal appointment, present. Every ultrasound, present. Every decision about the nursery, the baby's name, the pediatrician. He'd asked to be included, never demanding, always respecting Nadia's final say. Now, as they wheeled Nadia to the labor and delivery wing, Marcus walked beside her, his hand finding hers during a contraction. "I'm here," he said simply. "I'm not going anywhere." Labor was long and difficult. 22 hours of pain, exhaustion, and moments where Nadia wasn't sure she could continue. Through it all, Marcus stayed. He held her hand when she needed something to squeeze. He supported her back during contractions. He whispered encouragement when she was ready to give up. "You're the strongest person I know," he murmured during a particularly brutal contraction. "You've been strong enough to survive what I did to you. You're strong enough for this." At 3:47 a.m. on Wednesday morning, Amira Hassan came into the world with a lusty cry that announced her displeasure at the transition. The nurses placed her on Nadia's chest, and the world contracted to that single perfect moment. Her daughter's warmth against her skin, the weight of new life, the overwhelming surge of love that made everything else fade. Marcus stood beside the bed, tears streaming down his face as he looked at his daughter. When the nurses asked if he wanted to cut the cord, he looked to Nadia first, asking permission for this privilege. She nodded and watched as he performed this first act of fatherhood with shaking hands. Later, after the visitors had gone, after Lena and Fatima and Kareem had held baby Amira and promised her the world, Nadia and Marcus sat alone in the quiet hospital room. Amira slept in the bassinet beside the bed, her tiny chest rising and falling with each breath. "She's perfect," Marcus whispered. "You're both perfect." Nadia looked at him, really looked at him. She saw the man who'd broken her heart and the man who'd been working to heal it. She saw the husband who'd failed and the father who was already proving himself through presence and dedication. "Marcus," she said quietly, "I need you to understand something." He turned to face her fully, giving her his complete attention. "What you did, leaving, the planning, the betrayal, it changed me fundamentally. I forgive you not because what you did was acceptable, but because holding on to that anger would poison the life I'm building." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean things go back to how they were. I know. I don't know if we can be married again. Not the way we were. Maybe we'll find something new, something stronger built on this harder foundation. Or maybe the healthiest thing is to co-parent as friends." She looked down at Amira. "But I know I'll never again let my worth depend on whether someone stays or goes." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. "You deserved better than what I gave you. You deserved a partner who didn't run when things got hard. I can't change the past, but I can promise you this. Whether we're together or apart, I will show up for our daughter every single day. And I'll spend the rest of my life proving that the man who left was the worst version of me, not the real me." "Then prove it," Nadia said not unkindly. "Not for me, for her." She gestured to Amira. "Be the father she deserves. Be the man who shows up." "I will." They sat in comfortable silence, watching their daughter sleep. Outside, dawn was breaking over the city, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Nadia felt exhausted, overwhelmed, and somehow more powerful than she'd ever felt in her life. She'd survived betrayal. She'd given birth. She'd found strength she didn't know she possessed. Whatever came next, whether Marcus earned his way back into her heart or whether they forged a new path as co-parents, she knew she would be okay. More than okay. She would thrive. Amira stirred, making small sounds that would soon become cries. Marcus looked at Nadia questioningly. "You can pick her up," she said. "She's your daughter too." He lifted Amira with infinite care, cradling her against his chest. The baby quieted immediately, responding to the warmth and steady heartbeat. Marcus looked down at her with such pure love that Nadia felt her carefully constructed walls crack just slightly. Maybe, with time and continued effort, there was hope. Or maybe she'd learned that she didn't need hope in a reconciled marriage. She had hope in herself, hope in her daughter, hope in the family that had surrounded her with unconditional support. "Thank you," Marcus said softly, "for letting me be here. For giving me the chance to be her father." One day at a time, Nadia reminded him, echoing the promise they'd made to each other weeks ago. "One day at a time," he agreed, gently rocking Amira as the morning sun filled the hospital room with light. And in that moment, regardless of what the future held, Nadia knew the most important truth. She had found herself again. She had found her strength. And she had brought a beautiful daughter into a world where she would be loved fiercely, protected completely, and taught that her worth was never dependent on someone else's ability to see it. That was more than a new beginning. It was a reclamation, a rebirth, and it was enough. The end.